You're watching 16 News Now Digital Plus's 16 Sports Extra, brought to you by Gates Automotive.
Welcome into 16 Sports Extra, the podcast with the South Bend Tribune. I'm Jackson Neill. That's Austin Hough. That's Sabrina Hoover. Guys, the regular seas's almost over for high school football. Can you believe that?
First off, we got the whole band back together.
Yeah, we do.
First time in a couple of weeks since we all three of us were together. This is a monumental moment in the history of this Sports Extra podcast.
Exactly.
Video podcast. It's crazy. You know, it's officially the end of the fall when you get, or the start of the fall, I should say, when you get the football sectional draw. You know,
yeah, it does.
The leaves are changing colors. That must mean one thing.
There's leaves.
Football playoffs are.
Leaves are falling off the trees.
They're not green anymore. They're more like an orangey
cold.
red.
It's like cold when we're taking the golf cart over to Marcus
I'm
Franklin.
wearing this jacket.
wearing-
This is the first time I've worn this jacket since at least like April.
Oh, there you go. Did you find any money in it?
No, I wish.
I love when you do that.
I'm surprised I didn't find like a roster, like a tennis roster. Like, how did that get there?
The Mishawaka softball. What's that?
yeah. Look at this relic of the past.
I've had that before.
Yeah.
All right, so we're just getting done. What was that? Week 8? Week 8, yes.
Week 7, it's the literal halfway mark. 8 of 15 for Indiana, 7 of 14 for Michigan. So we are...
Wow.
If you get teams to go all the way to state finals, we were at the literal halfway point of the year.
Wow.
For both.
Crazy to think about that. So we had some results this past week that basically decided the conference standings. We also have the sectionals. We'll get to the sectionals a little bit this week, but we're going to really focus on that.
We're going to save our hot takes on those. Well, we get the hot takes off now, the more developed takes next week.
We'll be giving our predictions next week. So if you want to know full predictions for the sectionals, that'll be next Monday. You got to wait for that. We're going to do our research, our final scouting this Friday, if you will.
Right. Do our research.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Look at what John Harrell says, and then
go from there. But this past week, we got a couple results that decided some conference races. So we don't really have much at stake going into this final week 9 in Indiana. And I guess the spot that I want to start was where our 16 sports game of the week. Mishawaka versus Plymouth. Sabrina, you were out at that one.
You want to take the lead on that? You saw that game?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to show the highlights soon, but it was... Okay.
Jackson, that's your job.
Highlights, please. No, I'm just kidding. It was 14-10 at half. That game, that first half, was so fast. I think I was at St. Joe first, came to Mishawaka, and it was already halftime, and I was like, oh, okay.
God bless triple option.
Yeah.
And Plymouth runs the ball a lot, too.
Yes. So it was 14-10 at half. I think I talked to head coach Keith Kinder after the game, and the play of the game, I think it's this one.
Right here, this fourth down stop.
Fourth down stop for Mishawaka. I mean, Plymouth came out of the half driving. They looked like they were about to take the lead here. And then I think you'll see Landon Snyder, QB right there. He's such a good touchdown right there for him. But after that, it seemed like they were great on both sides of the ball. Had a lot of momentum after that. And so, big win for Mishawaka. They made some really key defensive stops, and as you can see right there, another turnover for them. Definitely a really good performance for them, for sure.
Yeah, Jackson, you got any thoughts before I ramble for 10 minutes?
Yeah, I was going to say, usually Austin kind of takes over in these.
I'll let Jackson get his points out if he has any thoughts.
The big thought for me is just the conference standings. We were kind of, looking at this saying, okay, if Plymouth wins this game, there was going to be this crazy matchup, Concord at Plymouth this Friday night to decide really the Northern Lakes and decide who kind of gets a share of it, what's really going on with that. Well, with this result, Mishawaka and Plymouth are now 4-2 in conference, so that game this Friday night, not as big of a... No longer as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I think just for Mishawaka, just shows, teams kind of peaking at the right time. This is a Plymouth team I feel like past couple of weeks been talking about how they've been getting these huge wins, these opportune wins, and now Mishawaka comes out, puts 34 on them.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Before you ramble,
yeah.
I just want to. I'm just kidding. No, but I think it's been really interesting to see how Landon Snyder has progressed throughout the season, especially making those big key plays in games that matter so much. I know talking to him and before the season even started, he was obviously a new face, new quarterback to the program. So I know seeing his progression throughout the season is really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean he took over that Penn game early as a sophomore in a big game like that you don't see that often. He has been the model of consistency for the most part. I mean, he's probably, he's had his sophomore moments, but I mean, he makes the big run there in this Plymouth game to kind of win. I think if you're Plymouth, yes, it's a tough loss. But I mean, you got to take solace in the fact that it was 14-10 and you're driving and you're right there. If they get that first down, the game probably changes for their direction. Maybe they punch it and score, go up. Like, they played him well for 2.5 quarters, which is not that there's moral victories in that, but there is a little bit of a moral victory of, hey, we at least know we can play with these guys. As long as we clean up some of the mistakes we made, like this, we got a chance, and they might have a chance to play Mishawaka again in 2 weeks. So, potentially, or 3 weeks however you want to like do that math. But the sectional semifinal could be a Plymouth at Mishawaka rematch. So I think if you're Plymouth, you take the loss. It's tough. You had 1-4 in a row, but you take the mental notes as well of like, hey, we know what we did well. Let's build off that. Let's maybe try to clean up some of these mistakes and go from there. So I all things considered, I don't think you should be too upset if you're a Plymouth fan with, yes, 34-10 looks bad, but, clean up some of those late mistakes. And, I mean, you're right there for 2.5 quarters. So, and then Mishawaka, too, just looks like Mishawaka. Like, this is what they are, so it's interesting. They're playing well, and they're probably the favorite in their sectional. But yeah, they're just looking really good. And one note about the NLC, because you kind of alluded to that. I actually talked with Craig Kaler this morning, the Concord head coach, and we were trying to think about the last time the NLC was decided definitively, but before week 9, and he couldn't remember. He's been around a little bit longer than I have, so at least in my 7 years, you never went into week 9 with it being definitively done. Like, even like how the NIC is this year, we're like, Elkhart, if they lose, it could be a share. Like,
exactly.
The NLC has always had at least that, or it ends up being like a winner-take-all game at the end. This is the first time I can remember where someone had a 2-game lead going into the final week. Heck, even in 2020, they had a sectional game decide the conference champion because of COVID. Like, Mishawaka played Goshen, not in the regular season, but they counted their playoff game to the conference championship. It was kind of dumb and whatever. But that was 2020. So COVID ruined. Nothing existed in 2020. Nothing counts. So, very weird to sit here and be like, it's over. And, like, that speaks to a little bit of the parity of the conference at the bottom, or the middle, Mishawaka, Warsaw, and Plymouth, all with 2 losses against each other. Even Northwood and Northridge, kind of hovering there. And it speaks to just kind of the resolve of what Concord has had this year, and being able to, somehow win those games against the other upper middle teams of the conference, and be in a spot to be here 8-0 and undefeated in the conference. So
yeah, and I mean, you kind of mentioned that middle right there, just kind of wrapping up the NLC. Like Concord, like you mentioned, still undefeated, 44-7 winners over Wawasee. They just kind of look like they're just rolling. It's just their year. It was just their year.
Also speaking with Coach Kaler, this is part of a story I'm working on this week about what do you do in week 9 when nothing is kind of on the line?
Exactly.
And so I talked to him and Coach Keith Kinder at Mishawaka, and I talked to Frank Karcheski at South Bend Adams, because they've been playing better, and I wanted to kind of get his perspective. But talking with Craig, they've only had 3 seasons in their history where they finished the regular season unbeaten. Wow. So this is a big goal for them. Like, in theory, like, okay, NLC's done. We don't necessarily have to play our guys. We also have a bye week after this. Like, we can, in theory, maybe rest for 2 weeks, get our guys ready to go for the sectionals. But they're locked in on going 9-0. Like, they want to win this game on Friday and be undefeated, outright, unbeaten champions. Yep. And so it'd be the first time since 2010. They did it also in 2006 and 1967.
Wow. Yeah. So
this is a big game. Like, they want to win. They want to win Friday night, and they know Plymouth is a good team. Like, they're not overlooking Plymouth, even though they lost to Mishawaka this past week. They know what the challenge is ahead of them, and Craig joked it's always like 10 degrees colder, and there's always a wind at Plymouth somehow. So we have to be ready for that too. So
of course,
real quick with the Plymouth game, Mishawaka. Even though the final was 35-10, I liked what Keith Kinder said. His message to the team after was like, "Don't look at the score, because that does not show what happened in the game, because it was so close.
Yeah.
And it was like one play, like especially with that 4th down, and just like you said, if they would have scored, if they would have even gotten that first down and potential to score, that really changes the whole game." So.
Right. Right.
Exactly. And so just going on the other scores in the NLC, Northridge, big winners over Goshen, 42-3. But the other game I wanted to get to, Warsaw versus Northwood. And we're going to run our highlights on this one. You're going to see it's all Northwood highlights.
By the way, I hate these red jerseys.
Yeah,
I hate the red jerseys.
It's really hard to see the numbers. That's Austin King right there, number 4.
If they had white numbers, maybe. But I'm not a huge fan of the red.
But you're going to watch these highlights, and you're going to see all these Northwood highlights, because our camera guy was there in the first quarter, and it was all Northwood.
Yeah.
They were up 21-0, but Warsaw comes back to win 35-21. It just kind of goes back to that that like upper middle of the NLC of Mishawaka, Plymouth, and Warsaw. They're all 4-2 in conference, and they're all just kind of right there.
Yeah, and like Northwood, look, they're playing a freshman quarterback and a fourth string quarterback because the two quarterbacks of the depth chart were injured, and they played a running back at quarterback against whoever they played 2 weeks ago. I forgot who they played Plymouth. They played a running back at quarterback, so now they actually have a quarterback. Playing or a trained quarterback, air quote, playing. But maybe that makes Northwood a little pesky down the stretch here. I mean, they've got one more game this week to kind of fine tune that offense. But look, if I've learned anything, NLC teams putting in a quarterback late in the season, all of a sudden they go to state. Northridge did it 3 years ago.
You never know.
Just saying, I'm just putting it out there. Northwood is a danger. They'll be about as dangerous of a 4-5 or a 3-6 team. I forget who they're playing. Oh, Goshen. They play Goshen this week. So they'll be about as dangerous of a 4-5 team as you can get going into the postseason, I think. So watch out maybe for Nate. And there are guys on this team that went to state last year. Like, it's not a completely whole new team. It's a lot of new faces, but they have some winning pedigree down there in Napanee. So don't sleep on them. They host Washington in the sectional opener.
Yep.
And then likely St. Joe at St. Joe. The draw was nice for St. Joe and Northwood there to get on that bottom half and avoid Mishawaka and Plymouth at the top.
Yeah, no, that was a good draw for them. So that's so the NLC basically all just wrapped up. Let's go over the NIC, which similar, kind of wrapped up with Elkhart beating Marion 26-0. Actually, 0-0 game at halftime.
That's interesting, right?
Elkhart's defense, still just great, but their offense inconsistent at times. So when they're on, they're on.
Yeah, I mean they put the backup quarterback in because Quinn Ross got injured, I believe, late in the first half. But his name's escaping me. I should have looked it up before I started talking. But Marion, I kind of joked about it with the Marion people I saw Saturday. Like, if these games ended at halftime, they'd be like 6-1, 5-2.
Yeah.
Like, their 5 losses are to teams that are all bigger than them, and they're all 5-3 or better. So, like, again, I just talked about Northwood being about as good of a 4-5 team as you can see. Marion is about as good of a 3-5 team as you'll see, and they got a chance to be 4-5 against Riley this week. So, they were up 17-7 on Mishawaka. They were tied at 21 late with Culver Academy. They were tied at 0 with Elkhart at half. They were tied at 28 with New Prairie in the third quarter. Yep. They were, the only game they kind of definitively lost, air quote, was Penn. That was 24-7. They weren't leading at any point, So, yeah, it's just been a weird year for Marion where, like, the record says they're not good, but they actually aren't too bad, and they make them very hard to put in the power rankings every week. Let's just say that. I could imagine it's a very weird team to really pinpoint, okay, what exactly is this team? Yeah.
Like you said, if you just go by halftime with these scores, they would have such a better record. But I mean, my takeaway on this one with Elkhart is just still just feels like an inconsistent football team. Just one of the most talented teams. I mean, they're 6-0 in their conference, 7-1. That only lost just to Concord by 1 point early in the season. So it's like this team is obviously one of, if not the best teams in this area. It just still feels like at times there's just these inconsistencies with the squad of like, if they can just put it together, and like that's why they're so dangerous when it's going to come time to sectionals. If they just get rid of some penalties, stop having some penalties, they start out fast, play a full game, they're one of the best teams in the state.
And I think we joke with Trayvon Curry every time we interview him after the game. It's kind of the same message. It's like I don't know if we want to play that, but
yeah, I'm gonna see if I can pull this up.
Yes. So each time it's kind of just like, hey, yeah, we won, but we got a lot of things to work on. But it's every head coach, but it's especially, something that Curry always mentions with the discipline of the team.
Let's hear a coach after a 26-0 win. Check this out.
Yeah. I mean, I feel good. We did what we were supposed to do the second half. First half was not good all around at the end of the day. Our defense did good, but we got to clean some things up offensively, special teams-wise, but we did what we were supposed to do second half. I challenged them, everybody on our staff, coaches, to do your job the second half, and they come out there and do what they're supposed to do second half.
Yeah, that doesn't usually sound like a coach that's...
You would have thought they just, struggled. They did struggle in the first half.
They did.
Their biggest flaw, you mentioned it, is their offense. They have to get that figured out. maybe they just are what they are at this point, and they're going to have to win these games ugly with their defense dominating.
Yeah.
Because, look, Adams is a 5A school, but, this should be a comfortable victory for Elkhart Friday night, and then you get a week off, and then you get the defending 5A state champions coming to your building, and a really good Fort Wayne Snyder team. And if you survive that, you're going to play a really good Fort Wayne Carroll team that played for the 6A state title 2 years ago. Has a lot of guys who know what that is like. So this is like you get to play real big boy football real soon.
Yes,
and you have to figure out a way to win those games. And look, if Elkhart's defense plays like this,
they can beat anybody.
They can beat pretty much every team. But at some point, they're going to play a team that will score more than 14 on them, or 21. Because St. Joe at 17 points is still the high mark for points allowed. Yeah. Someone's going to score more than 17 on you, more than likely at some point in this postseason run. You have to figure out a way to score 3 touchdowns against a good team. And Penn, they scored 7. Concord, they scored 12.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to score more than that if you're going to win a 6A state, anything at 6A, let alone a championship. State championship.
And I mean, and you can disagree with me or agree with me, but with that Penn.
What if I mildly agree? Or middle agree?
But it was very impressive to me how they beat Penn at their place during homecoming, and only held them to 3 points. That was. No,
it's impressive. They're really good. They're a really good defensive team, and they won the big game, late in the season. Obviously, they weren't at 100% for the Concord game. We talked about that before, but I mean, they are a good team.
Yeah,
I'm not denying that. It's just if they're going to win a state championship or make a real run at this, they're going to need to have something, really consistent on that offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing. I think that our tone might be coming across as
negative,
as negative.
I promise we're not trying to be negative.
And this is a team that's 7-1, has only given up 36 points in conference play this year. But it's the same. We're doing the same exact thing as their head coaches. It's we know that this team, what they can accomplish is putting a banner up.
It's the same thing with Penn.
Exactly.
Now. Penn is 6-2. They play really good defense. The defense has gotten better as the year has gone on for sure. But their offense has been just inconsistent for Penn, where you have to put that together against the best teams on your schedule. Otherwise, look, Penn got the benefit of the doubt with a nice draw. They get to host Lake Central, who's a sub 500 team. But if you win that, Crown Point, is coming to town, and they're number 2 in the state. Some people think they're number 1, me. But not humble brag. Crown Point's destroyed everybody on their schedule like that, and you don't see that at a 6A level. They have just brutalized people. And really good 5A teams like Maryville, so they are really really good. So Penn's got to figure out that offensive side of the ball if they want to have any chance of beating Crown Point, and they got 2 weeks to do it. They got 2 weeks to figure it out. Elkhart's got 2 weeks. To figure out how to get their offense. Really, Penn's got 3 weeks, this week, the bye week, and then Lake Central.
Exactly.
Elkhart's got 2 weeks, this week and the bye week, to really figure out what they want to do on offense if they want to make real noise, come early November.
Yeah, because you see in this game against Penn versus New Prairie, Penn won that 24-7, but you saw in those highlights, 7 of those points came on a pick six.
Right, so and you're going to have to score that way if you're going to win some of these games too, obviously.
Of course.
Opportunistic defensive plays are going to have to be vital for Elkhart and Penn to win sectional championship this year.
Yeah, but when a great defense, Penn only giving up 48 points in conference play so far this season. It's these teams obviously have these really good defenses, Penn, Elkhart, but you're right. When you want to talk about sectional, when you talk about state, things like that, you got to be able to score 20-plus points offensively. Maybe get that 7 points on a pick six, that gets you to third. But you got to be able to, as an offense, put up 21 points. You got to get 3 touchdowns offensively. Exactly. Because these other teams you're going to play, there's just so much talent that even with a great defense, they're going to get a touchdown or 2.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So that's a big thing to keep in mind. Just kind of going around the rest of the NIC. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick, South Bend St. Joe winners over South Bend Washington. We joked last week South Bend St. Joe was a perfect 77-77 when it came to their conference points for and opponents' points. But now, as you can see,
now they're plus 49.
Yeah, now they're plus 49 after this game. So I wanted to just check back on that.
Are they losing 49-0 this week to Penn so we can have balance?
So that was the one thing I wanted to ask. I hope
they don't lose 49-0.
That's what I was getting at.
For their sanity, please. Yeah, no. I don't think. I mean, maybe. No, I'm not going to put that on St. Joe.
Yeah, no.
St. Joe back-to-back shutouts, by the way. 29-0 over Riley, 49-0 over Washington. I know those teams are struggling offensively, but still, back-to-back shutouts and beat New Prairie 7-0 earlier this year. So that Husky defense been real solid. That will keep them in every playoff game they're in.
Of course.
So, yeah, I mean, look, I hinted about their draw. Like they're on that bottom half, and if they get to the final and play Mishawaka or Plymouth, who have played, one or two real games at that point, I'm not saying St. Joe is going to win the sectional, but they're going to be in the mix. We'll talk about that more next week, but
of course, and I'm
giving all my hot takes.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll actually
release all the secrets.
We'll actually go through and pick some of the sectionals next week. But yeah, I feel like for St. Joe, it's the same thing we've been saying. Maybe for Elkhart, it's like a team with a really solid defense. Mm-hmm. Can they just get the points necessary to win games when it comes to sectional time?
And they really did do a good job. I mean, again, it's some against a team that's kind of struggling so far this season, but they really did a great job running the ball, especially in some of those touchdowns that you saw there, and defensively obviously made some really good stops. But yeah, no, just as a whole, watching them, a shutout, just like. What's it called? Like you said earlier, another shutout for them is good to see.
Brayson Hurley is a weapon for St. Joe. He's a sophomore wide receiver. He ran 2 touchdowns technically on those pitch plays, caught a touchdown pass. When he's versatile and he can do a lot of different things. It's pretty impressive for a sophomore. So I mean, if he's playing well, the Huskies have a real good chance, at least on offense, to do some things.
Yeah.
And one other result, that last result in the NIC we wanted to touch on, because you kind of mentioned them earlier, South Bend Adams beating Riley 7-6.
I didn't call it necessarily last week, but I said don't be surprised if Adams wins this game.
And this Adams team can now back-to-back wins this season. So obviously not been
the public school champions.
Yeah, exactly.
South Bend.
So now, obviously not maybe the full season they won, but recently I think it's really cool to see back-to-back wins in different ways. Putting up 49 points against Washington, and then a tough game against Riley. I don't know. I think that's a cool thing to see for the Eagles.
Yeah, happy for Frank Karcheski. He's a good dude. They are young. They are really young. I mean, when you've got captains that are sophomores and juniors, you know what I mean? You're going through it. They knew this was going to be a tough year. So to get at least the public city bragging rights, and honestly they played St. Joe close. It was 24-12, I believe. So it wasn't they got, they lost. So St. Joe is the unofficial city champ. City champ. St. Joe is the state, regional, semi-state champ.
All too many.
But they are the unofficial city champ, St. Joe. But yeah, look, Adams, you get some positive vibes at least here near the end of the season before. Elkhart and number 3 Lafayette Jeff waiting for you in the sectional.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
Well, and you're right, just to see that progression going through at a time that you really need it. So.
Yeah, and look, we might have talked about this I think last week, Jackson, but you got to have the faith. You see what Plymouth has done this year, right? Mm-hmm. They were lost 21 in a row, or 22 in a row, and now they're in the mix to maybe win a sectional championship. I saw it at Fairfield when I first started up here, 2018. They went 0-9, and they lost their games by a combined 470 to 23 or something. Mm-hmm. 2020, they were the undefeated NECC champs at 8-0. You got to just keep faith and stick to the process. If you trust what the coaches are doing and trust these guys, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel potentially. Okay, this can be somewhere, that we're good. We can be in the mix potentially. It's obviously a little harder for them with a Penn and an Elkhart in that conference, and you never know when St. Joe and Marion are going to be good. Of course. But still, you can, get into that mix, get into that third spot. New Prairie, too, obviously, is in the conference. So, but yeah, you just got to keep the faith, man. And these are the wins against your city counterparts that can at least help you keep the vibes and energy high.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like, to me, when I look at this result, you kind of mentioned, we're obviously this year, not the year you want it, but if we go back in 2 years from now, we look back at, okay, when
play
did
this clip?
Yeah, play this clip, because when did things start to turn for Adams? It's a hard, end of the season's not going your way. Usually that's, especially in high school football, you can see the team kind of quit. Mm-hmm. The team's done the exact opposite of that. They've really kind of hit their stride at the end of the season, even when things didn't go their way earlier. Well-coached football team.
I was going to say, that says a lot about the coaching staff
as well. And getting a close game over a city rival. I think that's kind of this is one of those games I feel like next year when we go to like do an Adams preview before the season, they're going to go back and say, yeah, we're feeling confident this year. When we beat Riley by 1 point last year, that kind of gave us some energy moving into 2025. I think we're going to look back at this game, kind of circle it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then let's finally go over to the Indiana Northern State Conference, just for Indiana Conference. Yeah, I think there's one area we got to start in. Knox, Bremen. What happened here?
It is incredible how much better Bremen is when Tyrus Crogerson is healthy. How about that?
Yeah.
13 catches, 25 yards. Here he is right here, and a touchdown. He recovered 2 onside kicks, and he kicked a 31-yard field goal.
He can do it all, folks.
When this kid is healthy, I was at a game he didn't play. They lost to LaVille 13-12.
Oh.
So he plays. All of a sudden, wow, this team is... I don't know, man. You try figuring out Bremen this year. Like, it's literally like they get blown out by East Noble week 1, come back and beat a really solid 1A team in Triton. You know, then it's like, oh, they lose to LaVille. And I know Tyrus was injured, but like, man, like this is kind of a weird, what are they? They like, you know, they kind of got handled by Jimtown, and Jimtown's playing really well, of course. But like, I don't know if anyone thought, especially after Knox just blew out Jimtown. I mean, it was 41-28 last week, but Knox was up that game like 41-14.
They controlled it. They were controlling the game.
A definitive Knox win, so it was like, oh, here comes Knox. This is what we thought they were going to be. Beginning of the year, like, you know, a 3A state contender potentially, and Bremen just puts 46 on them like it's nothing, and it's like, oh. So if you told me to make a prediction for like Bremen Tippy Valley this week, I'd be like, no, I'm not making one. I'm not making one because I don't want to sit here and look like an idiot.
Yeah, just looking at this score, this is one of those scores where I like on Friday night, you know, our camera guy was at Bremen for a little, you know, I was out there for a little bit. I was like, oh, you know how to go, expecting Knox to kind of just have run the football, just kind of control the game. He's like, oh, no, I got some Bremen clips and everything. And then I'm following the game on Twitter, seeing the score updates. I'm going, wait, another touchdown for each side. It was just one of those scores that just kind of took me out going, did not see this one coming really at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and me both.
And like Tyrus is like, I know we went there and interviewed him before the season started. He is so like just athletically just built. Like,
yeah, he's built, but he's so unassuming because he's like 5'11".
That is
you know?
true.
He's not like a physical specimen. It's not like Derrick Henry out there running around. You know what I mean? Like,
But
like I mean, like, and Silas Ladig too. Like, you know, he's a good quarterback. It looks a lot better, obviously, with Graverson healthy. But like, I mean, look, I mean, he's just physically strong.
Yeah,
he's just strong, but he's not like he's not 6'5", you know, 220 pounds. Like, I don't know. He's just crazy, and he's dynamic. He does everything for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and then the rest, just kind of going around the rest of the conference. Jimtown beating LaVille 49-20.
Yep.
Tippy Valley 1 point win over Glenn. That's an interesting score there.
Yeah, Tippy Valley is weird, dude. They're 6-2, but like, what are they? Like, I don't know. Rochester was a nice win early, but they haven't. I mean, Knox and Jimtown they lost, and I don't know. Like, you know, the good thing for them is that they're in a sectional without any of the Indianapolis schools they had to play in the last 2 years. So that's at least a positive. But yeah, they're hard to figure out. Glenn is 1-6. Like, that should have been a game that Tippy probably controls start to finish. I mean, kudos to Glenn for not giving up and still fighting. But yeah, I don't know. This new conference, man, we thought it would be fun coming into the year. It's been unpredictable.
It's been so weird. That was just
yeah.
So, and because another thing I wanted to ask you if you had any insight on this, because there's Tippy Valley and Bremen is the only conference game I'm seeing on the schedule for the last week. We already know how this conference.
It's done. It's done. Jimtown and Knox are sharing it because Bremen beat Knox.
Exactly. So, do you have any insight on why there's only one conference game in the last week? Just feels kind of weird.
It just happened. So obviously these are all new conference games for these schools.
Yes.
So I just think it was a combination of like most schools scheduled their conference games for weeks, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just happened that Bremen and Tippy had to do it where they scheduled week 9, or they already were playing. I think they played week 9 last year.
Okay.
So they just kept it week 9. And so like Bremen played Culver Academy 2 weeks ago, and Tippy Valley played another non-conference game 2 weeks ago. So it just worked out where, for some reason, they're the only conference game in the INSC this week just because of the rescheduling, because they had to reshuffle their whole schedules just because of moving to this new conference.
That's what I figured. I figured it was something just kind of like to do with the moving new conference, but it just felt a little odd to see.
Right.
Because I was like, oh, like, you know, we're gonna have a race 4-1 teams, and then That's it.
Yeah,
Conference play's done there, basically.
Yeah, so Bremen and Tippy are playing for pride, basically, and who wants to be third place in the INSC?
Hey, the bronze match.
Yeah, it really is a bronze medal match.
Yeah, bronze medal match there.
Seriously.
So now I want to go up north to Michigan to the game that you were at last week. Niles and Edwardsburg. 21-14. We were joking about before we went on, but you don't see any offense wherever you go.
No, I'm allergic to it. Send me to Mars for the sectionals. So
you should have been at Bremen Knox. That's where you should have been at.
No, Bremen Knox would have been 6-5 if I had been there
exactly.
instead. No.
It's just you.
Hey, it was 21-7 middle of the second quarter. Both teams had big touchdown plays on their first drives, and I was like, okay, here we go. And no. But Niles is good, man. It comes down to Paw week 9. I mean, they're in their week 8 upcoming, not week 9, and so Niles should take care of business this week. I forgot who they're playing in the conference game, but Niles and Paw both undefeated in the Wolverine Conference, just like last year. They'll both be unbeaten going into that game, at least in conference play. Should be a great game. It'll be at Paw. But yeah, Edwardsburg, man, they probably outplayed at Niles most of this game, but they had 4 turnovers, like legit turnovers, whether it be interceptions or fumbles, and they had at least 2 more turnover on downs that I remember. So they just kind of shot themselves in the foot. They would move the ball. The big one at the start of the third quarter when they were moving, fumbled the ball at the Niles 20. Niles recovers. This game got a little chaotic at times. There was Edwardsburg scored, recovered an onside kick. 2 plays later, they fumbled. The next play, Niles threw a pick. It was just
all over
what are we
place.
doing here? This is a little chaotic, but Edwardsburg needs a win this week to kind of solidify their chances to make the playoffs in Division 4. Niles is pretty much comfortably in. It would take some craziness for them to not get in at this point. You have to qualify in Michigan, of course. 32 teams in each division go. It's because there's 700 schools in Michigan compared to 400 in Indiana, so you have to have a line somewhere for football.
Yeah.
Unless you want to be playing this out until January.
Hey, want to give us content?
It would be great content. It would be great content.
Although I don't know, January football in Michigan,
especially the UP. Yeah.
I was
3
thinking
feet of snow. Yeah.
I was thinking even Southwest would be tough. I don't even want to think about it there.
Think about the UP would be pretty incredible. I think it'd be fun.
I saw there's a high school team in Alaska. I saw this online.
The Facebook targeted post or something.
Yeah, and I think their season ended last week because it's
frostbite.
It's like fraud. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
You think 35 degrees tomorrow morning is tough?
Just wait for.
There's a negative in front of that in Alaska right now.
That's funny.
But yeah, there's this has actually been a really solid year for Southwest Michigan teams. Yeah. Last year, Niles was the standout, and everyone else was kind of, at least from our coverage area, okay. Paw, of course, was good, but St. Joseph has been strong.
Yes.
They're one of the best teams up in Division 3. Niles is going Division 4. Paw will be there. Edwardsburg has played better this year.
Obviously, that close against Niles. Yep.
Dowagiac is 5-2. They're in line to make the Division 5 playoff. Buchanan made Division 6 playoffs last year. They're on the fringe of it this year. Buchanan at Dowagiac is a big game for Buchanan to kind of try to get into Division 6. Division 6. So there's about 5, 6, 7 Michigan teams in Southwest that could make the playoffs here, which is really cool to see.
That is cool.
Yeah, because St. Joseph, when you kind of mentioned them, they did lose to Mattawan 24-7. But that's their first loss of the season.
Yeah, and they're going to be in.
Yeah, exactly. And the Bears, they've had some big results so far this year.
Unless you're just playing nobody on the schedule, more times than not, if you get to 6 wins, you're in. 7 wins is pretty much like a lock. But obviously there are teams that can, if they play a weak schedule and they go 8-1, they don't get in. So it's all about the playoff points and how they calculate that up in Michigan. So
it is funny because whenever, I think this was Friday night, and I was like, Jackson, how does this all work? Because, coming from Texas, high school football is way different than what y'all do here. So I was like, okay, I got to understand how the playoffs work, how the sectionals work.
Well, everyone makes it in Indiana.
I think
and they pull names out of the hat to determine who's going to play who in the ping pong balls, actually, technically.
But we won't get too far into that.
Michigan has a playoff point system, and I'm not 100% confident on what the math is on that. Obviously, if you play bigger schools, that helps your cause. You don't get any points for wins, but you have to win and you have to play
quality
teams
losses.
Honestly,
committee.
Niles has won losses to St. Joseph. That's a quality loss. They they don't get points for it, but like I think it somehow maybe factors into like, they beat Lakeshore by a lot. That helps their cause. You got to win by, like, if you're beating teams by like 50, like Highlands has for the most part. Scott Shaw, their coach, was like, this is the first game against Edwardsburg that they played all 4 quarters. Yeah. Really, because they were down 30-0 to St. Joe, so they got a running clock, and they've had running clocks in all their other games that they played because they were up so much. Yep. This was the first 4-quarter game they played all year.
It's crazy to think.
In week 7.
Yeah, we're in the middle of October right now.
Yeah, so crazy.
And then just some other results. You mentioned Dowagiac losing, but Berrien Springs, big 22-20
Yeah, Berrien
win.
Springs is good. And Dowagiac was down, I think, like 22-7 third quarter, so Dowagiac kind of rallied almost and made that a game. So good for them to kind of keep it. And then, again, like that's going to help their cause. I feel like, if Dowagiac beats Buchanan this week, I think they're locked in. They would almost be a lock for a playoff spot. Buchanan needs it more for their playoff lives, but if Dowagiac closes the deal and beats them, that is, it's actually a sneaky good game. I don't think I had Dowagiac Buchanan as a game on my schedule before the season that we might go up to, but that is definitely on the list this week. So it's about as north as we'll go for a game in the regular season. It's a good little drive up there, but they got a good thing going up there, the Chieftains.
There you go.
Chieftains.
And then lastly, just like Brandywine gets their first win of the season.
Happy for those kids.
40-20 over Benton Harbor. And I also just kind of want to mention, we don't have to really discuss it that much, but Cassopolis canceling their football season.
That is a bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer, especially I think that news came, did it come on Friday morning?
Thursday night.
Thursday night, Friday into Friday morning. That was,
to be hard.
Yeah, just tough to see.
I'm glad they still did a senior night, though. They did a senior night thing at the stadium with all the cheerleaders and the football players and that. Good. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure it wasn't easy for the athletic directors and principals and all that to get together, but you got to look out for the kids. You got to look out for the health of the kids. Yeah. I've seen teams cancel games for lack of players availability. Haven't seen full seasons like that. They must have had a lot of season-ending injuries to where it just wasn't going to be worth it.
And only 2 more weeks left.
And they were 1-5. Like they weren't gonna. They weren't going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, so just, even if an injury was just like a sprain, a bad ankle sprain, that's season ending at this point.
Let's regroup for basketball season.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So,
and you're right. You got to do what's best for the program too.
Yeah, it's not an easy decision at all, but it's just something, one of those ones, unfortunately, you had to make in that instance.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps up our recap of that this week. I mean, there's a couple games we can discuss, Concord at Plymouth, but like we said,
it'd still be a fun game. There's still some fun games potentially on the card. It's not like it's going to be this blowout city everywhere.
No, I just meant more so from the standpoint of like throughout this season we've been talking about, okay, what are important ones in terms of conference standings, things along that line. We don't really have anything like that to discuss this week.
No. Concord Plymouth will still be fun, I think, and it's a good litmus test for Plymouth too to kind of really see how we are against the elite of the area. St. Joe and Penn is a weird, like, can St. Joe hang around? Like, Marion kind of hung around with Penn. Can St. Joe hang around with Penn? St. Joe has not beaten Penn since 1976, I believe. Okay. Now, they didn't play every year since then.
Yeah, of course.
But you look at the series history, St. Joe was up 16-1 at one point, and now it's 20-16 Penn. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So it's a run.
Chris Giesman, it's pretty incredible what he did at Penn.
Yeah.
Completely changed the entire culture of everything that they did there. Penn was not good at anything, and then Chris Giesman showed up and he turned the football program into what it is today, basically. So yeah, they dominated everybody, and those were some great St. Joe teams in there too that they beat. So that is an intriguing game. I think who's New Prairie playing this week? I think that's a fun. I forgot if that's a good game or not, but there's just some interesting.
New Prairie. It's New Prairie at Washington, South Bend, Washington.
No, yeah. So Marion Riley, Elkhart Adams. Like the NIC is kind of struck. Like
NIC is kind of wrapped.
NLC is weird. Like it's Mishawaka, Wawasee, it's Northwood, Goshen, Northridge is playing Warsaw. That could be interesting.
That'd be fun to see.
Northridge has played better the last couple of weeks. It was Wawasee and Goshen, but still. Northridge again. We've said it all year, but Chad Epley gets those guys playing well at this time of the year. Keith Kinder is like, we did not. Yes, they're 3-5. I talked to him today too. He's like, they're 3-5, sure, but we're not overlooking them by any stretch in our sectional game. So, there are. I mean, Bremen Tippy is an interesting game. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's a weird because it's just like, all right.
feels anticlimactic. I feel like there's in the NFL season where it's just like there's nothing.
Right. Yeah. It's
week.
just like, okay, like, yeah, there are some fun games, but like it's not like anything decides the playoffs.
Yeah, it's
honestly the most important game in the area this week is Buchanan and Dowagiac. Like, that is the most important game. It's going to determine playoff points. Whoever gets those points is either A, solidifying their playoff case, or B, getting into the picture going into the final week. Like that is the most important game on the schedule this week.
Yeah, that's what it's feeling like. So, not too much to discuss for this week, but Austin, I wanted to ask you specifically. Sabrina and I were still kind of looking around the sectionals, but I know you are just completely locked into these sectional.
I watched the whole show, baby.
Completely locked into these sectionals.
I turned off after the sectional 6A sectional 2 was revealed. I don't care about the other.
I know.
There you go.
I saw you tweeting it. You're like, the show has started or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's locked in.
Death, taxes, and it was me with the show on my laptop and the NFL in the background.
There you go.
That's what I do. Literally 3 straight Sundays has been my view.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to ask you, because we're going to go through next week and really kind of, we're going to go through the sectionals. We're going to pick some sectional winners. We're going to give some predictions, some more hot takes. But just starting off, overall thoughts, is there any one section you're already kind of circling? Just your big thought, I guess, coming out of Sunday.
Yeah, so all year it really felt like, going into this year, I should say, we thought that sectional 18, that 4A1 was going to be amazing, right? With Mishawaka and Northwood and Northridge and St. Joe and they're all good. They're all still there. And like Plymouth obviously is ascended. So that draw was going to be the most intriguing to me. And I kind of talked about it earlier, but like St. Joe is sitting really nice. Like Riley has struggled on offense this whole year. Riley has been struggling. So St. Joe gets them week 1 and it's at Riley. So it's a road trip, air quote, to Jackson Field. And then if you win that, you will host more than likely Northwood, who, again, they're playing their 4th-string quarterback. I know Northwood is that program that has that pedigree. Northwood has beaten St. Joe the last 2 years in the sectional, both at Father Blythe Field. So it would be a 3rd year in a row that Northwood would go to Father Blythe Field in the playoffs. So a chance for maybe some atonement, for St. Joe, redemption, 3rd time's a charm if you want to go.
And all these, a senior-laden roster, so a lot of those guys remember it, so they kind of end it off with.
A lot of them played, last year at least, if not 2 years ago. Yeah. So that was my biggest takeaway in that sense of like, they probably have they got the nicest draw in relation to like, what's around them. Like Elkhart's got a tough first game. Penn got a nice draw too, but St. Joe and Penn were probably the biggest winners as far as like their draws and paths to get to sectional championship games from this area. Concord, like they got to go to Fort Wayne North. They are a dangerous team. And then if you win that, you're playing Warsaw at home. Yep. Who you hung on to beat by 4 with a late touchdown. If Concord goes on a real run here, the likely path is Fort Wayne North, then Warsaw, who's like a top 10 team, then number 3 Lafayette Jefferson, then number 2 Maryville. So like if they make it to semi-state, state, they will have won against 4 legit teams. Like that is,
and that's when how good
it's team of destiny. Like bet the house on Concord to win if they get, or they'll be so tired they'll lose in the state. Like you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, so there is like legitimately like if they obviously that's the chalk holes and the upsets happen. But
of
like,
course.
Concord, we talked about like those first 6 weeks earning it. This is. Like they'd have to really, really earn it to make a real serious run here. That was probably the biggest takeaway for me. Like they don't get any gimmies if they're going to keep on winning. Obviously, So, that was kind of it. And then, Marion got a decent draw too. I liked Marion's draw in that sectional. Likely to see Knox or Jimtown in the final. And then, it's just there's some nice paths for some teams that lower like. Triton has got a nice path in 1A in their sectional to get to the final. LaVille can make the final in their sectional, but North Judson's sitting there. So God bless. Like seriously,
good luck.
There was there's a lot of chance for our teams to get to the championship games. Like, but I thought the biggest winners were Penn and St. Joe because they avoided Penn avoids Crown Point, St. Joe avoids Mishawaka and Plymouth at the top. So you kind of you can see it. Like you could visualize, okay, we could be playing November 8th, and if St. Joe got there, I believe it would be a home game for them, depending on how Mishawaka Plymouth shakes out. So you got a chance to host sectional championship. you gotta love that. Penn would be hosting Crown Point. You gotta love that. Like they are the two biggest winners of the sectional draw from Sunday night.
Okay,
in my opinion.
And we're gonna break that down completely next week. We're gonna another week to look at the teams, just kind of fully
dropping a bunch of Sagra numbers on you.
Yeah, we're gonna really go deep into it. We're gonna pick. I don't know about math for us. We're gonna do our sectional picks and everything like that. That's coming up next week. Didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but before we go, Austin, I know there's a ton of other sectionals. There's a ton of other stuff happening in local high school sports.
Do I look more tired than I normally do?
Let's start with high school soccer.
Yeah, I look more tired than I normally do because this is a long Saturday. Yeah. This was the first of the 4 Saturdays in a row that could be really, really long. Soccer sectionals were this past weekend. I tweeted this out Sunday morning. This was maybe the best sectional championship Saturday of soccer I've seen in our area in the 7 years I've done it. Just top to bottom. I mean, the highlight of the girls' side, Marion, number 3 Marion beating number 1 St. Joe 2-1. Late goal by Daisy Moody for Marion to win it. But even like Penn and Adams went to overtime on the girls' side. Westview and Trinity at Greenlawn went to a PK shootout in the 1A sectional final. Of the 4 girls' games that we were following Saturday afternoon, 3 of them were down to the wire. Great games, like super dramatic, kind of thrilling wins for the teams involved. So really cool stuff. And then the boys' side too. You had Adams scored in the final 6 minutes to beat Marion in a sectional final. Goshen went to overtime. You had some just drama everywhere. It felt like Saturday throughout the day. It was awesome. Of the 7 or 8 games we followed, 5 of them came down to the last minutes, and that's what you want in a sectional championship.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
And so it was just awesome. It was really, really cool to kind of see that. And kudos to the Marion Knights girls. Getting over the hump. They lost to St. Joe earlier in the year. They are going to be the favorite to get down to Indianapolis in the North as of this moment. They're just so technically sound. They just do I'm not going to claim to be a soccer expert. Like, I'm not going to say the shape of their defense. Like, but like you just watch them and you're like, they play such sound defense and they have legit offensive players where they can hit you with the counterattack. And like Kendall Bradley, Daisy Moody, JoJo Murphy is everywhere in the midfield. Like every picture I have, it's JoJo Murphy is like in it. Like, it's crazy. How about she's everywhere?
What a good bounce back for Daisy as well.
Yeah, Daisy, she's a great player. Yeah. Great kid. She tore ACL last year, missed the entire season. She actually missed the St. Joe game earlier this year with another injury. So she hadn't played St. Joe in 2 years before, making up for lost time with that game winner, I guess. But it's just fantastic. So, girls soccer regional semifinals are Wednesday around the area. The notable South Bend area games are Penn at Warsaw in 3A. Highland goes to Marion, so Marion is hosting Highland from the region area. That's a 6:30 start because of the time zones. Yeah, 6:30 Eastern here, and then LaVille girls kind of surprisingly won a sectional. They've been solid all year, but it was such a hard sectional to pick a winner in. LaVille won, and they are hosting Westview. Kind of an uphill battle for Westview, or for LaVille, I should say, but Westview's really good. But LaVille, it was awesome to see them, the Lancers, kind of surprised. The marquee game Thursday, boys. I think this is the best game of the semifinal slate. Adams at Concord. That'll be fantastic. Concord is 14-2-2. One of those 2 losses was to Adams, 3-1 earlier this season. Adams is playing with a lot of confidence. This is their first sectional title in 3 years. Concord is back-to-back sectional champions now. It's a popcorn game. It's a popcorn game. Thursday night in Dunlap at Concord High School, and then Bethany Christian, the defending 1A state champs, the boys. They will be hosting, I believe, Wheeler in the regional semis on Thursday night as well. So a lot of good soccer, and then the finals are Saturday afternoon. The 3A games will be at Penn, the 2A games will be at Marion, and the 1A games are at Westview. So those are usually like 1 and 4 p.m. or 2 and 4:30 p.m., like in the middle of the afternoon. Some great soccer. Some great soccer was played this past week. The Saturday lived up to all the hype, and it was fun, man. I woke up Sunday morning being like, damn, that was a lot of fun. Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, but that was my thought. As I watched the Bears beat the Jaguars in London, I was like...
You were up early.
9:30 a.m. maybe. Yeah. Coffee was my best friend on Sunday, so it was you got a satisfaction of like watching... Like, I watched 2 really high-level high school soccer games Saturday, Marion St. Joe and the Adams Marion boys. Like, that was really, really good soccer, and you just... I don't know. It was kind of cool to see it. And it was better than anything that happened at Notre Dame Stadium. So,
hey, I don't know about that. Well,
49-7 with a lightning delay. Yeah,
that hour lightning delay.
I'll take our soccer instead. And so the kicks off. My foot just made a loud noise. I apologize, but gotta edit that out later. But now is when the fun begins. Now is when it does. Soccer regionals this week. Volleyball sectionals begin on Tuesday. Most of them are on Thursday, and then they play semifinals Saturday morning, finals on Saturday night. If you're gonna check out a volleyball game anytime this week, or I know I just plugged a Thursday night soccer game, but Thursday night, Penn High School, Mishawaka Penn, the second quarterfinal game. Penn beat Mishawaka last week in 4 sets, but they were all close sets, 25-27 type deals, 24-26. 2 very competitive teams. So that's a great game. And the second game of the night at Penn on Thursday is that. And then Adams Riley is the starter. Adams is actually a really solid team this year. So if you want to see 3 of the best area volleyball teams, Thursday night at Penn is a good spot to be at. That starts Thursday, really. There's a really good sectional down at Plymouth in the 3A where, Plymouth is, Marion is solid, New Prairie is solid. There's 4 teams that have 19 plus wins down there. So it's some really good parity and balance. Yep. That one has been hard to predict every year. It feels like the last however many years. Marion is the defending champ. They kind of came out of nowhere last year and won it. They went into that sectional 10-12, and they came out as a champion. It was what? How did Marion win this? Northwood in 3A has a real chance to make a run too down in volleyball. So they're at Westover for the sectional this week. They should probably take care of business there. That's a program that has been a semi-state every year the last however many years, or the final 8, whatever, the final 4 kind of round. So they are due maybe this is their year to really make that serious run. So we'll see. Those are the volleyball highlights for sure. Cross country sectionals are Saturday morning.
There you go. Man, you have some busy times these days.
He really does.
I told you. Do I look more tired? No, I'm not actually doing the running. That's the cross country.
There you go.
I just watch. Yeah. Yep. Hey, here you are. Big sectionals at New Prairie and Oxbow Park over in Elkhart, Goshen area. Those are the 2 main ones in the area. I know I've mentioned it before. Liam Bauschke from Mishawaka has a real chance to make a chance to win the state championship, so he starts out at New Prairie on Saturday. I don't know if we have any teams that are going to really be in the mix to contend state championships, but Northridge boys have always been solid. Penn is usually in the mix team-wise. Will they go down to state and be top 10? I don't know. I haven't. Cross country's been weird this year, where it's kind of been super predictable of Mish Bauschke and Elkhart boys are good too at the top, but they could be in the mix. And if that wasn't enough, but wait, there's more. Yeah. Boys tennis.
Oh yeah.
We have 2 teams going to the state finals for the first time since 1972.
Jeez.
That's crazy.
South Bend, St. Joseph, and Penn both won regional or semi-state championships and regional championships last week. They won the regionals during the week, semi-state on Saturday. This is really cool. I'm actually going to write a column kind of about it later this week at the Tribune, going out to talk to both teams tomorrow or Tuesday. So look for that whether Wednesday or Thursday on the Tribune. But, St. Joe, it felt like they were a favorite going into their semi-state, and they were able to win. Penn, it was a 50-50 matchup. It came down to 2 doubles. They pulled away at the end to win, and Penn coach Eric Bowers, this is his last season coaching the boys program. He took him to state in 2013, so this is a nice little end cap to his career, in 2024 to go. And St. Joe is really good, and they both have tough quarterfinal matchups. So state tennis takes 8 teams to the state finals, air quote. So Penn plays number 4 Noblesville, and St. Joe gets number 5 Columbus North on Friday morning in the state quarters. But look, to get 2 to go in the same year we haven't had any go in the last 8 years. So this is a big enough accomplishment as it is. To get 2 in the same year, 1972 was the last time it happened. Mishawaka and South Bend Adams both went in 1972. Goshen and LaPorte both went in 1968. That's it. So, my mom was 3 days old when, the last time this happened. So happy belated birthday, Mom, by the way. And crazy.
Yeah.
So it's cool, man. That's a fun story, to kind of see that, and you feel happy for the kids and all the work they put in, and Yeah. So it's the Friday at 10 a.m. to Saturday at like 9 p.m. Don't call me. Like it's just like I'm locked in. I'm locked in on all this, and so it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a fun weekend. It's just loaded with content everywhere. You got something. Everyone's got something they'll like. This weekend.
There you go, and you'll have all the coverage in the South Bend Tribune, so you can find that. We'll have coverage here at WNDU of a bunch of different high schools. So I've got a cool high school soccer story working on for tomorrow, or when you guys hear this today on Tuesday. So that's really fun, but. High school football sectionals coming up. Sectionals of other sports. It's a fun time to be covering high school sports.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I missed anything.
I think you got everything there.
Yeah.
And your mom's birthday.
And my mom's birthday.
And mom's birthday in there.
So
that's
this is the last week for a few weeks where there's actual games happening on like Tuesday and Wednesday. So next week there are no high school sporting events Monday through Thursday.
That's so crazy.
Nice.
On the IHSA schedule, at least. There may be some Michigan teams I'm just not realizing, but because they just put everything on those Saturdays. And so like October 25th is the first football sectional night, and then October 26th, the Saturday, will be regional volleyball, semi-state soccer, regional cross country, all day, like cross country at like 10 a.m., soccer, like a 1, 4, and 7, volleyball at like 5 and 8. Like it's just, it's a lot.
You're gonna be going.
I think I'm gonna like coffee. Is really just
lots of coffee. Well, thank you guys so much for another week of 16 Sports Extra. We'll be back next week picking our sectional winners for high school football.
No pressure.
Hey, no pressure.
I know.
We'll keep track of that too. Well, for Sabrina and Austin, I am Jackson. Thank you so much for watching.